Welcome to the Crypto Teacher. And guys, I come back with that video just to make you think. We had Jerome Powell from the Fed and Steve Mnuchin testify about the CARES Act's money again, guys. Listening to this, guys, they're doing nothing but playing the Hegelian dialectic. And also what Anthony Sutton taught us is that they're managing conflict. They're not trying to resolve anything. They're managing conflict. That is very, very important when you understand the New World Order. Now, basically, right now, the Fed is saying, hey, we still need these lending programs. Remember, Steve is closing down Main Street, but he's leaving open like 5 lending facilities. But the fact is that the Fed is saying, no, we need them. And Steve is saying, no, it was in this paper that they ended December 31st. So, guys, we know that, like I've been over several times, that we are going to have a shrinking of liquidity. And that's going to hit the cryptos and the actual stock market. But we know that cryptos is going to be the new economy that keeps this Ponzi scheme going. Remember, guys, when it comes to the New World Order, everything is planned out. Enjoy the video.
Since April. This, in turn, has helped keep organizations from shuttering and has put employers in a better position to keep workers on and to hire them back as the economy continues to recover. These programs serve as a backstop to key credit markets and have helped restore the flow of credit from private lenders through normal channels. We've deployed these lending powers to an unprecedented extent. Our emergency lending powers require the approval of the Treasury and are available only in very unusual circumstances, such as those we find ourselves in. Many of these programs have been supported by funding from the CARES Act, and I've included detailed information about those facilities in my written testimony. The CARES Act assigns sole authority over its funds to the Treasury Secretary, subject to the statute's specified limits. The Secretary has indicated that these limits do not permit CARES Act-funded facilities to make new loans or purchase new assets after December 31 of this year. Accordingly, the Federal Reserve will return the unused portion of funds allocated to the lending programs that are backstopped by the CARES Act in connection with their termination at the end of the year. As the Secretary noted in his letter, non-CARES Act funds in the Exchange Stabilization Fund are available to support emergency lending facilities if they are needed. Everything the Fed does is in service to our public mission. We're committed to using our full range of tools to support the economy and to help assure that the recovery from this difficult period will be as robust as possible on behalf of communities, families, and businesses across the country. Thank you.
As to why the decision to make the return of these funds away from the 13-3 facilities at this time is the best thing, and what the intent that you had was in making that termination.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And let me first say I want to thank the Senate for passing the CARES Act, which was 96-0 in an unprecedented response. And as you know, I lived in the LBJ room for over 2 weeks, so I'm very familiar. I personally negotiated many of these provisions. Matter of fact, I brought the CARES Act with me because I reference it and keep it next to my desk. And, Mr. Chairman, I would just ask you to recall, you and I were sitting outside Senator Schumer's office with his staff. It was after 1 a.m. in the morning on the night that we finally finished this. And I asked you to come to sign off on behalf of the leader and others, the final red lines. We went through this very carefully. So I would direct you to Section 4029, which is very clear, which says, except as provided in subsection B on December 31, 2020, the authority provided under this subtitle shall terminate. It was very clear. So my decision, first of all, I want to thank Chair Powell because he has been a terrific partner in everything we've done. And I really want to thank him and the people at the Fed. He and I have been speaking constantly. In deference to him, I did extend the 4 of the facilities that use non-CARES money. My decision not to extend these facilities was not an economic decision. I'm surprised to hear Senator Brown use words like sabotage, no legitimate justification, delusional, malpractice, time for action. I'd be more than happy, Senator Brown, to come see in your staff and walk you through the legal analysis. But this is perfectly clear. The Senate provided unprecedented authority to the Secretary of the Treasury in giving me $500 billion. The statute was very clear. Matter of fact, I find it implausible that any member of this committee believed that in voting for the CARES Act, you were authorizing me to invest $500 billion to make loans in perpetuity. So if you don't read this as there is an expiration, then you must read this, that there was a loophole in the law, that I could invest the $500 billion forever had I committed it up front, and I don't believe that was the intent. I would also just conclude, I echo what Senator Brown said about restaurants. The President and I believe that restaurants have been unfairly targeted, and I'd urge Congress to support another $300 billion for PPP. This would have a real impact. These restaurants need grants. They don't need loans. Thank you.
Last Tuesday, a Treasury Department spokesperson said that you plan to put the $429 billion that you're withdrawing from the Fed's lending facilities into the Treasury's general fund. Is that a correct statement?
Again, let me just first comment on the first part. I don't agree with your reading, okay? I believe that the section applied to direct and indirect, and had you thought it applied otherwise, there would be a loophole and there would be no point of having the date. I was never asked about the December 31st date, and I always assumed that if Congress wanted to extend that, they can. Now, as regards to the proceeds, let me direct you, Section 4003, which talks about the deposits of proceeds. Again, it is my intent to completely follow the law, and the law requires the amounts transferred to go to the financing account and then to repay any money lent to Treasury. So again, we will completely follow the law. This is not discretionary. Again, I urge Congress, if you want to extend this, bring back legislation which would authorize me to do it.
You can keep putting the onus on Congress when, in fact, you have the abilities. Let me read to you Section 4027 of the CARES Act that provides Treasury with the appropriation of these funds, quote, to January 1st, 2026, any funds described in paragraph 1 that are remaining shall then be transferred to the general fund of the Treasury. It doesn't say by or no later than January 1st, 2026. So these funds being moved ultimately undermines. I hope, Chairman Powell, that you will commit to not return any funds to the Treasury until we are assured that Congress and the public that those funds will remain in the Exchange Stabilization Fund as required by the CARES Act.
Just for the record, they don't go back into the Exchange Stabilization Fund as I cited.
Thank you, Senator. So I think I would put it a little bit in context. You know, we've done a lot, and we really appreciated the working relationship we've had with Treasury on the facilities, and thank them for the productive work we've been able to do together. Our thinking is that we would have left facilities in place to be backstops. We don't question the Secretary's decision about the CARES Act money because that's entirely his decision to make.
So thank you all again for your service.
Thank you.
Thank you. And our final senator who will be by telephone is Senator Sinema.
Thank you, Chairman Crapo, and thank you to our witnesses for being here today. You know, Arizonans are struggling to make ends meet during the pandemic, and I regularly hear from families and small businesses back home that are concerned they won't make it through the winter, especially since coronavirus cases are spiking across the country. By passing the CARES Act and authorizing the Treasury Department's backing of the Federal Reserve's emergency lending facilities, we lowered borrowing costs for households and businesses alike, protecting jobs and stabilizing our economy as we continue to fight the coronavirus. With cases on the rise, now is not the time to pull back critical support for families and businesses in Arizona. And that's why I'm disappointed by Treasury's decision to withdraw financial support for the lending facilities, particularly the Main Street lending facility. It moves us in the wrong direction and puts relief further out of reach for people that desperately need it. So, Secretary Mnuchin, recognizing that many U.S. businesses need direct relief as well as access to credit, do you believe that businesses, particularly local restaurants, retail businesses, and those in the hospitality industry, have what they need right now to survive the winter?
No, I don't. I think that's why I encourage Congress to authorize us to spend the $140 billion of unspent PPP money so we can give them second loans that, if used properly, will turn into grants and save lots of jobs.
Well, this is an area where we agree, Secretary Mnuchin. I also
Thank
think
you.
that those dollars should be released and used by businesses around the country. I do hear from business leaders across the state, though, that we need to expand and improve, not retreat, the lending facilities. And so I'm hearing from folks at home that many small and mid-sized businesses in Arizona won't make it without additional relief. And if they can't get direct relief, they should at least get access to credit. I think they should have both. And of course, this isn't just about the businesses. This is about the small business owners and the workers and their households. There's a lot of stake at here, and families, jobs, and their homes hang in the balance. You know, back home in Arizona, most people don't think that Washington cares very much about what happens to them. And my concern is that decisions to end the Main Street lending facility, where things are getting caught up in partisanship and procedure, and people are losing sight of the end result, it makes me think that folks in Arizona might be right to have given up on Washington. Now, Secretary Mnuchin, if you could just briefly respond to my question about the Main Street lending facility. We agree on funding for PPP, but I'd like to hear your thoughts about the Main Street lending facility and why you think that this should be eliminated or ended for mid-sized businesses in Arizona and throughout the country.
Well, again, my reason of why it should be ended is because there's a December 31st termination date in the law. I think it's very clear. I've already cited the section. I have it with me. I won't go through it again. I'd be happy to send it to you. Congress can extend it. I personally think that idle loans out of the SBA are more effective. One of the problems with the Main Street facility was that a lot of those small companies that are doing well had access to banks, and the companies that didn't fit the program. But again, it was not a judgment on my part. It was merely following what the law prescribes.
Now, Secretary, I know that Senator Cortez Masto asked to see the legal reasoning for your decision to end. I'd like to see that as well. You know, we have known about some concerns around the Main Street lending facility for months. And in our last time together, I lamented the fact that I believe that Treasury and Fed jointly set these terms too stringently, and that many businesses in Arizona were unable to take advantage of them. So I'd like to reiterate that I believe that the program should be continued and that eligibility should be expanded for the facility, and the term sheet should be changed so we can help more businesses in need. Now, Chairman Powell, I've seen your take on this, and I know that you and Secretary Mnuchin don't agree on the extension of the Main Street lending facility. Do you think that households and businesses will risk having lower or higher borrowing costs because of the end of the Main Street lending facility?
Actually, it's a little more complicated than that. The Congress gave the Secretary sole authority over the CARES Act funding. We play no role in that, and that's in distinction to the 13th facilities, which we designed together because we both have to approve. And the Secretary made that, reads the law as he said, and really his voice is the authoritative one on that, and we accept that. We accept that reading of the law. So our point really was that other central banks and any central banker would tell you that it's premature to be pulling back support for the economy. And the Secretary did indicate in his letter, and it's true, that we can either reestablish facilities or institute new facilities, and we can even have exchange stabilization fund backing for that, provided the legal requirements